Okay, we're back. So I wanted to talk a little bit about legislative history. Legislative history is what judges use to figure out what the people who made the laws actually meant. Okay, so we watched our bill video, how our bill progresses to the laws, and the actions of our lawmakers in these documents that comprise what we call a legislative history can give hints to the court about what the lawmakers wanted this law to be. Okay, so you can have hearings about it, bill drafts, testimony, debates. Um, and courts will look through a legislative history to determine what they call legislative intent. See if I can get here. Okay, so they figure out what they were actually meaning. Okay, so here's an example of what a piece of legislative history might look like. So for this Oklahoma City National Memorial Act, this is the public law. This is our Senate report. Recommendations. They're analyzing different terms in the law itself. So it can be helpful. Now, if you look as to what it means. If you look later to Statsky, they think it might be dangerous, that people can like insert stuff in the hearings to give courts different views of what is meant, and you should really look at the plain language first. And yes, you should look at the plain language first, but if that is unclear, courts often go to this legislative history. So we're just looking at one of the ways to start looking for legislative history, and I think this is on your quiz. So you have the text of your statute, and at the end you have this list of dates. Okay, so it'll give you what things happen. So this was public law when it was enacted. Here it was changed. Okay, it'll give you the public law number, or this is probably the statutes at large one, the different dates of what happened, and then you can go and link here and find out what happened, or find out what happened in Congress if you're looking at a federal law. So you're going to need to know about that for the quiz. Okay. We talked about that. Statutes versus case law. Okay, so we figured out how to determine what a statute requires, but then we have to apply these statutes to our facts, right? So what is our issue? So we need to figure out what the rules of law are, right? What our requirements of the statute are, and then we have the facts of our case. And do all those facts meet the statutory requirements? If yes, the statute applies. If not, not. Okay, so here's the question. Our party hosts libel under the Illinois Dram Shop Act. So remember back, we talked about what the requirements of the Dram Shop Act. So we want to apply our elements to those facts. Okay, so the Dram Shop requirements was up here. Boom, boom. List the elements. Okay, so say a person is injured in the state by an intoxicated person and they have a right of action. Who can they sue? A person. Okay, is a party host licensed to sell alcohol? No. If they gave the alcohol and caused the intoxication, but they're not liable under this Dram Shop Act because they are not licensed to sell alcohol. Okay, so that's the way of applying your case to the facts here. On page 161 in Hamies, there's a little mini checklist, which is super helpful, that they put together to, let me just go 161, easy enough. Okay, does the statute apply? Okay, so we looked through those little languages, who it applies to, is it criminal law, what kind of law it applies to, what are the dates. Okay, then we do our elements, right? Outline our language. Remember, we look to these little words, and, or, except, all of those. If we need to know what the meaning of terms or phrases are, we go to the definition section or case law or legislative histories. And then we apply the law using that little message in that little method. What are our facts? What's our issue? Um, that's kind of how we're doing it there. Okay. Rule of law comparison. Okay, so rules of law we've talked about are basically laws. We have statutes, we have regs, case law, constitutional sections, court rules, all sorts of things. So these are our primary laws that we've talked about. And we know that courts in decisions, they discuss and interpret these primary laws. And for an opinion to be precedent, it must interpret a law that is similar to the issue at hand. So if I'm looking at a criminal case, but the case that I'm arguing before the court is a civil case, it's not similar to the issue at hand. So it won't be precedent. Okay, so how similar? Exactly the same is obviously best. It should be maybe interpreting either the same statute or the same common law doctrine. Okay, if it's less similar, the more different the source of law is, the worse it is. Okay, so if it's a question about a sale of drugs versus possession of drugs, right? Those are two different crimes, so they probably don't apply. Invasion of privacy versus defamation, they're two different torts, so really maybe they don't apply. Okay, so you want it to be a similar, for a case that you're researching, you want to cite it in your memo or your brief. It should be in a similar case of area of law. And then the facts have to be appropriate. So the key facts, remember those? If the facts were different, the law would be different. They should be substantially similar. So that's for case law. When you're comparing statutes, you don't really want to use a case that's interpreting a different statute. Remember how we looked at the annotations for that under color of law statute, right? So we can use any of those cases to interpret our statute. We don't really want to use a case that's interpreting a different statute. Okay, so don't do that. Here's an example, and we're in the Statsky book now, but on page 150 in Statsky, the statute requires that the person running for office has reached the age of majority, and there's no definition section for the statute, so they don't define what age of majority is, and the legislative history does not address it. So what the court does in this case is it goes to a different statute in the same jurisdiction that uses those same words, majority age, and they say over 17. So that's how the court defines it. Okay, so if in the absence of any information, they'll stretch. All right, so common law, if you're comparing one common law section to another, you can do it if the language of the two common law doctrines are similar and the policy is similar. And if there's nothing else that directly interprets the common law doctrine that you're looking at. Okay, so look to the similarity of language, the similarity of functions, and no direct authority. Okay, but don't do it unless you actually have to. Okay, so legislative history, which we were talking about earlier, remember that's the record of everything that went on prior to a bill becoming law, and courts use that to determine legislative intent of a law if the meaning is unclear or undefined. So types of documents, you might have bill drafts, committee reports, hearings. You can go to congress.gov to find them. Statsky says it's controversial because it's not real law. You don't know what the intent of every lawmaker was. Legislators can manipulate it. So just be careful about it. So when the when you're looking at these free sites, oh, this is just some information on how to search for legislative histories. But say I go to um, congress.gov and I pull up my statute, it's going to give me a little bit of information. It's going to give me the public law number, and then I can go back and search under that public law number, or here's the bill number, and then I can see what happened. So here I'm in this bill number. Here's the text of the bill. Okay, so that's the actual bill itself. And here's what's happened, the actions. It was introduced in the House. It was and referred to the House, the committee. So that's all that's gone on there. But again, just like when we're looking at anything at the end, see, this is the public law number. It was in, and that was in December 23rd. It was passed. This here would be when it was amended. So it's a little bit of help there. All right, so that's it for this week. Don't forget to do all your homework. And we have that Goldman brief session together. I don't remember the date. Look on the look for the date. All right, have a great week, and I will chat with you soon.